to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space, a space for you to settle in, sit back, relax, and focus a little bit on health, wellness, faith, family, and this crazy thing called life.
This podcast is not a replacement for mental health treatment or professional health care. In case of crisis or emergency, please contact your local healthcare provider or dial 911.
Welcome to the Wing Space podcast. In today's episode, we're going to start the first of a couple of part series on sleep and nutrition as I welcome back our nutrition expert here on our team, Tracy Pritchard. So welcome back, Tracy. Glad to have you here today with us.
Thanks. Good to be here again.
And if you've been following along on the podcast, back in season 1, I did a couple of episodes on sleep and the importance of all that. But today I brought Tracy here so that we could chat about nutrition because we know that that's one of the pieces of the puzzle that is so important. So Tracy, maybe let's just start with what's important about sleep.
Sure. So we all know that we feel better after a good night's sleep. And what does that even mean, right? Because there's a quantity of sleep, meaning for how long were you actually sleeping, and then quality of sleep. So, a lot of the research shows that there's many health improvements that you can get from sleeping better and more often. And we know that how you take care of yourself can also impact your ability to take care of others. But sleep really doesn't happen in a vacuum. I like to talk about the pillars of health, which are food, movement, sleep, and stress. And they really all work together for those feelings of well-being and improvement in your health overall.
And I would imagine that there may be folks that are listening and they hear those 4 pillars of health and think that it's a big change kind of overnight. But we're talking about small changes, just a few tweaks here and there, not a major overhaul necessarily.
Sure. I mean, for someone who's going to bed at, let's say, 11 o'clock at night, it would not be realistic to tonight go to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock. Unfortunately, that happens when people are at that crash and burn stage. But more importantly, if you just know you're going to sleep too late, and you know that because you're exhausted during the day and you wake up groggy, backing things up 15 minutes, that would be a place to start. And considering your sleep routine, your sleep hygiene, which are some things we'll get into a little later, those small steps are going to make a big difference over time.
Yeah, and for those people that are going to bed at 11 o'clock and probably not getting enough sleep, I hear people say, oh, well, I only need fill in a small number of hours of sleep. What's the reality? How much sleep do we really need?
Sure. Well, for adults ages 18 to 65 years, the recommended amount is 7 to 9 hours per night. Now, sure, there's those one-offs or people who can get by on less or they're just used to that. I don't know if it's because they're having a lot of caffeine during the day or maybe they take naps during the day. Some people are just built differently, but for the majority of us, that 7 to 9 hours per night are where most of the benefits are. Studies do show that people who sleep less than 7 hours a night often feel sleepy during the day, anywhere from 3 to 7 days per week. A lot of those folks who are not getting the 7 to 9 hours per night, when you ask them, they are counting on that 3 o'clock cup of coffee or sugary snacks to just get through their day. And until they actually get the 7 to 9 hours per night, they probably just don't realize how chronically sleep deprived they are. But you think about infants and toddlers and how parents become a slave to their sleep schedules. But then why don't we do that for ourselves? I mean, when you think about a toddler, if you remember back, I know we have teenagers, but toddler time was an early dinner and then bath time and reading time and, getting them to calm down so they could sleep. Yet we don't do that for ourselves.
Oh, yeah. I remember we didn't do anything between 1 and 3 because it was nap time and 7 o'clock was the beginning of the bedtime routine.
Yep.
And you're right. We don't do that for ourselves. Any other general ideas with regards to what makes sleep so important?
So when we don't have sufficient sleep, it really does decrease our productivity. Our immune systems can't work optimally. A lot of times too, your accuracy at work, even likability. I mean, none of us feel, if we didn't sleep well, we're probably a little bit more irritable. But one really interesting thing too, I remember reading some studies about healthy college students who went through some type of sleep deprivation. And even for one night of that, they found that they gained fat mass and lost muscle mass. So there really are metabolic consequences to not sleeping enough. And sometimes, clinically, I would see folks who had their diet squared away, they were exercising, and they might hit some kind of a plateau. And sometimes that missing piece was they weren't getting enough sleep. And once they started sleeping more and scheduling and prioritizing sleep, they were able to lose, the weight that they were hoping.
Well, and I can imagine too that people who are sleepy, not having lots of energy, are probably not moving their body much during the day either, and it becomes that chicken and the egg. I'm tired, so I don't exercise, but I don't exercise because I'm tired.
Well, it's interesting you bring up exercise because other studies have shown that 75 minutes per week of high intensity exercise or 150 minutes of moderate exercise is associated with reduced levels of daytime sleepiness. And better concentration even when you're tired. So it does seem kind of counterintuitive. Like, I'm tired, exercise will make me more tired, but really over time, it will give you some more energy.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize those numbers that you just said, because some people think that they have to have 75 minutes a day of exercise, and we're talking about over the course of a week. So 75 minutes of high intensity over the week, or 150 over the week, that's 30 minutes a day when we're looking at moderate intensity. So yeah, lots of key things impact what happens when we have insufficient sleep. What does it look like when we have sufficient, good quality sleep?
Sure, of course. Well, when you sleep well, you're going to feel better, you're going to think better, and more importantly, you're going to be able to make better decisions. So for those who haven't slept well in a while, I can tell you, having been a chronically sleep-deprived person, probably until my children were born, how much better I feel, and I crave good sleep now, and I really try to prioritize it because I know how much better I feel.
Yeah. The idea of making better choices is a great way to lead us into nutrition choices and why it really is so important to consider what we're consuming. Before we get into that, though, let's take a quick break to hear about some of our upcoming services.
Prepare and Enrich is a service that we'll be offering to premarital couples. It is a strength-based program that utilizes assessment portion and then subsequent sessions to look at that assessment and discuss what are your strengths, what are the areas of growth, what are conversations that you'd like to have as you are leading up to and preparing for marriage. One of the nice things about Prepare and Enrich is that it covers not only a wide variety of areas, but it can be utilized with couples that are in different stages of life as well. So maybe this is your first marriage, maybe it is a blending of families that come into play when you are preparing for this. So the idea is that we can support you in that process and support you in having conversations with your partner and planning ahead for success. You can go to the website and send us your information and we'll get back with you, or you can give us a call.
For more information on Prepare and Enrich, visit our website, hopehealingtherapy.com, or call 301-690-8404, extension 0.
Right, so if we aren't eating a balanced diet, there are definitely some nutrient deficiencies that may contribute to sleep disturbances. Now, we know people have sleep concerns and issues for a variety of reasons, but one of the things we have some control over is what we're eating or what we're not eating. So the importance of that balanced diet with, vegetables, fruits, lean proteins, healthy fats, that's going to go a long way. In fact, just today I saw on a marquee, I believe it was at the local hospital, it said, "Eat the rainbow for heart health." Eat the rainbow just means, different phytonutrients, those colors that are in vegetables and fruits. And if your heart is healthy and working the way it should, that's also going to promote better sleep. So better exercise and all of the things. So it is like if you're eating really just more whole foods, single ingredient foods, and reducing or removing all those processed foods, the chemicals, that is all going to lead to many benefits, one of which is better sleep.
I'm sure that marquee was up there because it's February, which is, heart month. But really, eating the rainbow is good for the whole body from, the top to the bottom and everything in between.
Right. I find it's interesting because everybody wants the magic food for sleep or the magic food for their heart or the magic food for their hormones, where there's really a huge overlap in a healthy dietary pattern, which really is similar to what a Mediterranean dietary style would be, focusing on whole foods, whole grains, less processed foods. There's going to be a lot of overlap. And what's good for one is going to also be good for the other.
Sure. When we talk about nutrition, many people probably are thinking that we're going to talk about this idea of weight gain, weight loss, body composition, and certainly it's a component, not all of what we're going to talk about today, but what does the research show, and how do these habits impact the composition of our body?
We don't get enough sleep, our bodies are just less energy efficient. Even though we're less energy efficient, we might experience an increase in appetite. That's why after not sleeping well at night, people typically aren't thinking, oh, I'm going to make myself a high protein breakfast and get to the gym. They're thinking, where's my coffee? Where's something sugary for that quick bolt of energy? So that's why, not getting enough sleep is associated with obesity and weight gain. So the other issue with that is if you're overnourished, meaning you're consuming more calories than your body is able to use, that can lead to obesity, which has a bunch of other risks of sleep disorders, one of which is obstructive sleep apnea, and it's more common in those with obesity. So I think the takeaway here is that it is not just about willpower. When we aren't getting enough sleep and our bodies aren't energy efficient and we have an increase in appetite, we're more likely to consume more calories, have more of a fat intake, eat more carbs at night. And some of that is because there's been a complete disruption in our satiety signals, because our hormones get out of whack when we're not sleeping and then we're not eating right either. So those hormones, for those who are interested, there's a hormone called leptin that suppresses appetite, ghrelin's the hunger hormone, cortisol's the stress hormone. Those things just aren't making sense when we're not sleeping well.
Well, you mentioned before our break about the idea of making better choices and making better decisions is so much easier when we have good sleep. So that just plays right into, obviously, the opposite. We're not going to make the best choices when we're sleep deprived and we're just hungry and we want something quick that's going to satisfy us, so we think, when really it's probably doing us much more harm than it is good.
For sure. And it's that chronic sleep deprivation. I mean, I've met a lot of people that are like, well, it's always been this way. I've never been a good sleeper. But they never really think about the sleep being associated with their higher body weight because of its effect on appetite hormones. Unfortunately, we see a lot of social media influencers just trying to promote willpower and this, things that are probably easier for someone who isn't already in this chronic sleep deprivation cycle and poor habits, right? Like, so then where do you start? Again, you start with backing up your bedtime. We've talked in the past about hydration. Can we eat something different for breakfast and plan for it? So if we can plan for sleep, that's great, but it doesn't mean we're going to sleep. It means we planned for sleep. So what is our plan when we wake up, whether it was good sleep or poor sleep, for a high quality breakfast with enough protein so that we're not relying on caffeine and sugary snacks? There is one really interesting study that researchers said that they followed some dieters over a 14-day period, and they had them cut back on sleep. And they found after that, kind of like the study we talked about earlier, the weight that they lost from fat dropped by 55%, even though their calories stayed equal. They said when they were sleep deprived, they felt hungrier, they were less satisfied after their meals, they had less energy. So really that's all because of sleep.
It's such an interesting research study. And you mentioned just a few minutes ago about this idea of willpower. And from a mental health perspective, willpower is about mindset. And there's a lot of people that end up in this cycle of, well, I don't have enough willpower, I'm not strong enough, I'm too weak, and they make it about their ability to make decisions when really the internal system of their body is what's impacting their ability to make decisions. It's not just, their fault, so to speak. And that study that you just mentioned, I mean, just changing the amount of sleep that they're getting impacted their weight and their ability to make good choices.
Absolutely. And I like what you said there, because I certainly believe in personal responsibility for our actions. Though I will say that having been around the food industry, there's a lot of things that really aren't directly our fault. I mean, we have to take ownership of our health, but everywhere we look, whether it's fast food or you need this or there's this one miracle solution to your health problems, technology is in our face 24/7. People aren't unplugging so they can get the sleep. It's almost like life just happens to everybody. So again, we need to take some responsibility for those things and say, well, how could we do things a little better? But it's not easy. There's no just magic, snap your fingers and you'll sleep great and eat great. It takes a little bit of effort. And it's really like, where are you at and what are you willing to do first? And just start there. Take those baby steps. I love the picture of 2 ladders, and one ladder has the rungs and they're very far apart, almost unachievable. Like you'd have to have really long arms and legs to step up them. But the other ladder goes to the same place but has these really small steps in between that will still get you to the same place, perhaps even in the same amount of time. Maybe it takes longer, maybe not, but it's not just drudgery and torture to do it.
That's a fantastic segue, I think, into ending our episode here and picking up on a bigger discussion about what those small baby steps are for folks who are looking to help support their sleep, how to plan and prepare for that. So thanks so much for listening today, folks, and stick around because there's much more to come on this conversation with sleep and nutrition. Have a great day.